Hi, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties on this, but we are here now, recorded. But I wanted to talk about some updates for the week. So if I have, if no, I do have a workshop on Friday, this Friday, and that would be what? That is the 27th at 9:30 Central at the Frankfurt Park District. It's called Fear of Falling, Balanced Solutions Await. So if you are interested in that, we have a few slots left. You'd have to go to frankfurtparks.org, Frankfurt Park District. It's at Friday, September 27th at 9:30 a.m. And then also the Power Within workshop is on Saturday, October 5th, and that's with me and hypnotherapist Jana Jordan, and it's called The Power Within: Navigating Limiting Beliefs, Purpose, and Emotions. So there is a fee for this October 5th, 3 to 5 p.m. There's a fee of $15 for this workshop, but we are going to be working on stuff for you. So Bibi Frederick is here. Hi.
Hi, so good to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about biological age uh, in this segment. But before that, I always ask the guest, what do you do to stay healthy? Other than what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, I think there's many things that are important to have your best health. Obviously, eating well, getting exercise, sleeping well, drinking enough water. Those are some of the obvious ones, I think. And I try to do all of those. Definitely, I can do improvements, but I value those things, and I see that I feel better when I do that, right?
That's true. That's true. And then the thing is, it's always a work in progress, right? Nothing's going to be
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So great tips there. Bibi, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and your background?
Yeah, I am Bibi Frederick. I live in Evanston, Illinois, and I'm originally from Denmark. Grew up there and found my husband in Europe, and we got married and moved here. And I have three kids that are almost 18, 20, and 24. So
Ah, three
treasure
kids. I have
those.
three
Yes.
kids too.
All right. Yeah. So
All
yeah.
right. So we're going to be talking about biological age. And why don't you just
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about not your product necessarily, but why, I guess, a lot of us like to turn the clock back,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I know there's certain ways to do that, but why do you believe it's important for us women to do this?
Well, I think it's important for all of us, but I mean, we as women, we also, a lot of us look at aging, how we look, right? And when you're healthy on the inside, of course, that shows up on the outside. And how well you're able to move and how well you feel, it is all part of that. And I think one of the, I mean, and I think that's our lifestyle, all of it that affects that, how well we age, how well our bodies function. And whether I think exercise is extremely important mentally and physically, cardiovascularly, everything, right? You have to exercise. And
Hmm.
and I think nutrition is another very big one. And I mean, I think it's the harder one of them. I mean, I guess there's so many advice out there. What do you do? Where do you even start, right? And most of us need help in that department.
Yeah, and you're right about that one. It's like, where do you start? Where do
Hmm.
you start? There's so many people. If you're on social media, there's so many people talking at us,
Right.
and it 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 should be tailored to the person
Hmm.
because we all have different we all work differently,
Right.
with our brains and how we think, and then how our bodies work as well.
Mhm.
And, when we talked, I feel like it was like a couple months ago, and you were
Mhm.
telling me about about the company that you
Mhm.
help, you
Yeah.
help, and what you do. And I thought it was really, really interesting. So why don't you dive into that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were saying, everybody is, I think, feels overwhelmed when they try to figure out how do you get healthy, because there's so much information out there, and there's so many fads and things that are in, then it's out. I mean, when you look back, I'm sure there are things where we can think of that it was silly, right? That's not something that is what people believe anymore, right? But
Hmm.
there's some things that will always be true when it comes to nutrition, right? And what the company I work with, Zinzino, is doing is making it really easy to get the nutrients into your body. So it's like a great biohack, So we make it super easy and efficient for your body to be healthy. And one of the things that what it does, it helps with the inflammatory response, which is something that's way out of whack in
Hmm.
most, most Western countries and all over the world. We see it. Um, and what we do, we help regulate that. We help get you in balance with that. And there's four things that cause that to not be optimal in your body. And one of them is lack of omega-3. One of them is lack of vitamins and minerals, different nutrients. And also having an unhealthy gut is another thing that causes the inflammatory response to be out of whack. And then the sugar levels in our blood is way too high. And what Cincino does, we take care of the first three. And so I have a background in nursing, but I never learned about this. And I feel like a lot of health professionals are not aware that omega-6 and 3 are some of the most important nutrients to get right in your body. So when I started working with Zinzino, I learned that there's an omega-6 and a fatty acid called omega-6. And we have to get it through a diet. Without it, we can't have our best health. And then there's omega-3, which is also a fatty acid, and we have to get it through our diet. And without it, we can't live, we can't have our best health. And the difference between the two is that omega-6 will cause inflammation. And that's, of course, a very important part of healing. Whether you cut your finger, you break a bone, or you catch the flu, you have to have inflammation kick in so that you can heal. And then once you're healed, you want omega-3 to come in because omega-3 will stop that inflammation. So the balance between those two is really, really important. You don't want to have more than three of the inflammatory omega-6s to one omega-3. So a 3-to-1 balance is what you want to have in your body.
I'm sorry, say that again. So you want three omega threes to one omega six, is that right? Or is it the other way
You don't
around?
want to have more than 3 omega-6s to one omega-3.
Okay,
So you can have 3 times
got
as
it.
many omega-6s, that's fine, but not any higher. Three, no more than three or less. Um,
And is that where we get into trouble? Because there's 3, 6, and 9, but the 6 is, you said we need it, but if we have too much, it's inflammatory.
right.
It's inflammatory. That's why we need the
Yeah.
omega 3s.
Yeah.
So, what kinds of foods are those omega 6s coming from?
Good question. So omega-6 comes from a lot of seed oil. In American food, we have a lot of processed food that has a lot of omega-6. So different seed oils. And of course, we use that also for frying food. And also fat from meat has a lot of omega-6s in it. And then the
Okay.
omega, yeah. So, and
So
since the 60s, our diet has changed tremendously. So where we have way more of that. And
yeah,
if you look at statistics, you can see too that diseases are going up and up since then, right? Because our diet is so poor. And then we're
it
getting
is
less and
so
less
poor.
of omega-3, which is from fish or algae. So from the ocean is the one that we look at because it's a very different omega-3 than the ones that we get from things from the ground. So like nuts and avocado and
Mhm.
all those things are very healthy, but it's a different kind of
Omega
omega-3.
3.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So if we reflect, everybody, if we reflect on what we're eating,
Hmm.
and we know we're having processed foods and we know we have those types of seed oils,
Hmm.
then we have an abundance of that. And I think this is what Bibi say, we have an abundance of this,
Hmm.
and that's inflammatory. So we need to have a good amount of omega 3s to counteract the omega 6s in our body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So
Um,
it,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, so it would make sense then to think, well, I just need more omega-3. And that is part of the truth. So in order to get in balance, you have to have a good omega-3, and Zinzino gets one from Iceland, which is one of the best producers of fish oil. And then what we've done to protect that, because omega-3 oxidizes very quickly. And so what we've done, we've imitated what it's like eating a whole fish or algae. So in
Mhm.
those two things, they're always combined with antioxidants. The ones that we have are polyphenols, or that's in fish. So we have found an olive oil that is very, very high in antioxidants, and it's from a pre-harvested olive oil. So they're smaller and green, and so they're more dense in antioxidants and more nutrients in there.
Mhm.
So it has a very, very high amount of antioxidants, which in itself is very, very good for you, right? And then on top of it, it protects the omega-3 so that instead of having maybe 5 to 9 hours, you have about 35 hours for it to get absorbed in your body. And that's the key. That's why our products work, because they last long enough for you to absorb it and for it to get all the way through your system into your cell membranes, into your tissue. And then you can start talking about optimal brain health, optimal heart health, boost your immune system, and many, many, many other things.
That's really interesting. So you say Iceland. It's
Mhm.
from Iceland.
Right.
Where do you know? I mean, do you know where a lot of our omega 3s come from?
I know there's a lot of products out there that are not ideal for fish oil, and it's a lot of them actually go rancid because they're not protected with antioxidants. So, and that's really bad for you if you get an omega-3 that doesn't last long enough and actually breaks down in your body. That can be actually very unhealthy. So you got to make sure that you get a good omega-3 that actually has antioxidants so that it lasts in your body and that you can absorb it.
And how many hours again? How many
So
hours
we
is
have
that?
you have about 35 hours to absorb the one we have, instead of a fish oil, which will last between 5 and 9 hours.
Okay, so how do we know? Okay, let me back up actually. So when you go to the doctor,
Hmm.
a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, you need a vitamin D, you need omega 3, you need a magnesium," because those are like the top vitamins.
Hmm.
We just don't have enough in our
Right.
body.
Yeah.
Now, now I forgot my question. Now,
How do you know what balance
how do
you're?
you figure out like if
Yeah.
how much you have and if you are out of ratio?
Yeah. So again, since Zeno's making it very, very easy. So we have an at-home dry blood test, and it comes in a little kit, and it has everything you need to do the test at home. So it's a dry blood test. So you have a little stamp-like thing that prick a hole in your finger, and you put a few drops of blood in test paper. And then we send it to a lab in Norway, and it's a separate lab from Zinzino, one of the top labs in the world. They also do doping tests and DUI testing and Oxford, Harvard, very big organizations are using them. So it's a very easy test, and the results are very, very accurate. And you do it in the comfort of your own home, and then you get this test result. And what we're testing is some of the most important biomarkers, if not the most important, because we're looking at that omega-6 rebalance that we talked about, and then also it reveals how permeable, how healthy your cell membranes are, so how well they absorb nutrients, get rid of toxins. And unless you're in that good balance, your body has a very hard time absorbing nutrients and getting rid of toxins, and for the whole body to function, like, for instance, hormones penetrating. I mean, the body obviously is extremely complicated, but if you don't have healthy cell membranes, it has a hard time functioning because, of course, all kinds of things go through the cell membrane, and that has to be in place. You have to have those building blocks right in your cells. Because if your cells are healthy, of course, your whole body is going to be healthy, right?
Yes, and I'm glad that you talked about the absorption because there are, that women that come to me that, they need to lose weight. And my job is to help them get their body into homeostasis, into balance,
Hmm.
because they could just start off starting to eat healthy, but sometimes that those nutrients that they are currently taking in are not absorbing because their cells are just not primed for it. And it
Right.
sounds like this test will help the body, like you'll get the results and you'll know what the absorption rate is or something similar to that, so you can get to that homeostasis balance with
Yeah.
regards to your omega-3s and
Right.
6s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
pretty
test.
neat.
It is. I love the test. I love it that we can test people to get a baseline and see where are they at. How well does their body function based on what they're eating? And as you
And
can,
how soon do they test again?
so we test 4 months later because the red blood cells turn over every 4 months. And since that's what we're testing, we wait 4 months then to see how they're doing. Um, and so it also looks at brain health, how well your brain functions, and that is definitely one of my favorite things about this, that we can get a black and white picture of how is your brain functioning. Is it getting what it needs nutrition wise to function optimally?
That's
And
pretty cool.
yeah, I
Um,
saw it with my oldest son, and he was 13 at the time when we tested him, and I was shocked. He was actually, instead of 3 to 1, he was 100 to 1, and I about fell off my chair, right? And he's a very sweet, sensitive kid, but he had pretty explosive temper,
mhm,
and he had mood swings. But I thought, well, he's a teenager, right? And
mhm,
so we got him tested, got him on the oil, and within a month he was like a different kid. And I asked my husband, and because he was a little skeptical in the beginning, and
mhm,
I said to him, Daniel has really changed, hasn't he? And he's like, oh yeah. I mean, so I mean, he would of course get mad at things, but it was like normal, right?
mhm.
And his mood was different. And I remember one time I asked him, "Hey, honey, can you set the table?" And he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "What?
Mhm.
What happened?"
So, yeah, the mood regulation, right?
Yeah, right.
So, so what is your experience with? Because we're talking about brain health, you've been talking about that. So, what is your experience with people that have a hard time focusing?
We have a lot of people that say that improves and mood improves. So for some people, it's sleep, memory, just a lot of people will say they feel more clear in their minds. So mentally, it really is fascinating what happens mentally with people. Um, I mean, we've even had some with what's it called? when your whole body shakes from, oh, seizures.
Seizures?
Yeah. But just the brain has to have enough omega-3 for it to work. And there's so, I mean, obviously an extremely complicated organ, but when
Hmm.
you give it what it needs, it's really amazing what we see. I remember one time I had a friend whose kid had a hard time focusing to do homework.
Hmm.
And my friend would sit with him for hours at night trying to do the homework. And he was very squirrely. And he got on Zinzino, and after that, he would do his homework on his own in like half an hour and be done.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
When,
yeah.
I was telling somebody, I was like, wow, I'm like, you can do this because you really enjoy it.
Hmm.
They really enjoy it. So that focus is just right
Yeah,
there. But
yeah,
when it comes to everything else, it's like, la, 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 blah, blah, blah,
yeah.
so that is fantastic that the the balance of the oils can
Mhm.
help with the mood and the focus. And I think that, I
Yeah,
mean, even with, I mean, there's younger kids, and then there, as you age, things
yeah,
just change, and you
yeah,
have a hard maybe you have a harder time focusing because you're getting older. I
yeah,
mean, who knows? Everything's different. Everybody's different. But I find this really, really interesting.
yeah.
Now, we talked about omega 3s, but you also said there was you work on vitamins and minerals as well as the unhealthy gut. Now,
Mhm.
how does the test that Zinzino has, does that um, have anything to do with the vitamins and minerals and the gut as well, or is it completely separate?
So
The
the
test.
balance test is just testing 11 fatty acids, and out of that, they calculate those things. But if you get the right vitamins and minerals, that can also help the cell membrane get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we don't directly test vitamin levels, but
Okay.
see amazing results with the multivitamin. So that one helps rebuild tissue. And for myself, about 8 years ago, I started having really bad knee pain and was limping around, feeling like I was 90 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually in a wheelchair 2 times because I couldn't put weight on my knee. So I ended up seeing a surgeon, and he could see my cartilage was getting thin and I had a small torn meniscus. And of course, he recommended a knee surgery. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, I added the multivitamins, and after a month, I was better. After 2 months, I didn't have any more pain. And it was just, for me, amazing to see how, with the oil and the vitamins, that my knee started to get rebuilt. And to this day, I'm fine as long as I stay on it.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. I love when you don't necessarily have to take a medication. You're taking a supplement instead, or just something just to help your body instead of
Right,
just helping the symptoms of the body.
right.
Uh, I love that. I really do. And then tell us about your the unhealthy gut supplement.
Yeah. So the gut is another area that's affects the whole body, especially gut brain connection, which I think is extremely fascinating. Also, your organs, your skin, your immune system, your digestion, obviously. And what we do is that we have a prebiotic that has different fibers. So the prebiotic is the actual fibers that the bacteria in your gut eats. And that's a very efficient way to make them multiply by feeding them. And so there's different sides in the colon that has different bacteria that needs
Mhm.
different fiber. So we've designed it so that they break down in that right order so that your whole gut gets healthy. And that affects your whole body. And yeah, it's very powerful, very
That's
efficient.
great.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
How can people get a hold of you, Bibi?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm happy to give you my email address or phone number. So
Okay.
Yeah, if
Okay.
anybody wants to talk more, I'm happy to answer questions. I welcome questions. I welcome people, if people are a little skeptical, that's a good thing. You should be if it's something that you're putting in your body, right? So I appreciate all that.
That's great. So when this is uploaded, maybe you can just put your information and your contact information in the
Yeah,
comments so
yeah,
people
happy
can
to.
get a hold of you. I think this is, you guys, I think this is a really interesting product, and what they have, they test and they have supplements and then you can test again. And not a lot of companies do this. It's more of like, it's when we go out into like the store, the Walgreens, it's like, oh, supplement, supplement. There's so much.
Right.
It's great that they're testing before and after so you can see the results. I think that's really powerful for you to know that information
Yeah,
and for you to, feel the difference as well. So
right.
thank you, Bibi, for coming on and educating us on this company and the supplements that they have and the testing. I think it's great.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Arlene. I appreciate you and all you do here. So thank you.
Thank you.